My aunt called me a W asterisk or to my kids, so I told her kids why their dad really left. The truth crushed her. Now neither my kids nor hers will speak to her. Christmas is much quieter now. I never thought my own aunt would push me to the brink. But the night she tried to poison my children against me, I knew I had to unleash a truth that would shatter her entire world. I just didn't realize how spectacular the fallout would be. The air in our house was thick with turkey and unspoken tension that Thanksgiving. 23 people, crammed into what was usually our peaceful family home, felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark. But let's back up a little, to how this entire mess began. My Aunt Eleanor, my mom Carol's younger sister, was always the golden child growing up. She was beautiful, popular, and married her high school sweetheart, David, right after graduation. They had 3 kids, Chloe, Noah, and Lily. I, on the other hand, was the awkward niece, the one who took a bit longer to figure things out. I didn't get married until I was 32, had my twins, Abigail and Benjamin, at 34. Eleanor loved to make these subtle, passive-aggressive digs about my unconventional timeline at every family gathering. My husband, Daniel, and we've built a really good life. He's a software engineer, I'm a marketing director. We're comfortable, you know? Not super wealthy, but we have enough. We live in a nice suburb outside of Denver, the kids go to great schools, and we're happy. But sometimes, even happiness can't protect you from family toxicity. The real problems with Eleanor started escalating after David left her 3 years ago. Nobody really talked about why he left, at least not openly. Eleanor, of course, painted herself as the ultimate victim of a midlife crisis. She'd say David abandoned her for some younger woman. The whole family, myself included, rallied around her. We offered support, helped with the kids, because that's what family does. David moving out happened right before Chloe's 16th birthday. Their divorce was finalized within a year, and David relocated to Florida for work. He did stay in touch with his kids through video calls and visits during holidays, but the physical distance was hard on everyone. Eleanor, though, she collected sympathy like it was currency. Last Thanksgiving was when everything truly changed. We were hosting at our house because Mom Carol wasn't feeling well and just didn't want the stress. 23 people crammed into our home. The smell of turkey and stuffing filled every single room. Abigail and Benjamin, now 14, helped me set the table. They were excited because their cousins were coming, especially Chloe, who was now 19 and home from college. Eleanor arrived late, as usual, with her signature martyr expression. I could tell she'd been drinking before she even got there. Her eyes had that glassy quality, her laugh was too loud, but it was a holiday, so I just let it slide. Daniel gave me a look that said, "Keep an eye on her," and I just nodded. Dinner started fine, you know, the usual family chaos. Multiple conversations happening simultaneously, kids laughing at the kids' table. Then Eleanor started. Little jabs at first. "Must be nice to afford a house this big on 2 salaries," she said, looking around our dining room. "Some of us had to make sacrifices." I ignored it. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. "Abigail, Benjamin, you two are so lucky your mom works," she continued, her voice dripping with something ugly. "My kids had a mother who was actually home for them." My jaw tightened, but I just kept serving mashed potatoes. The explosion happened after dinner. The kids had gone downstairs to play video games while the adults lingered over coffee and pie. Eleanor was on her 4th glass of wine when she suddenly turned to my mother, Carol. "You know what I've been thinking about, Carol," Eleanor said, her words slightly slurred. "How different our daughters turned out. You raised one daughter who knew how to keep a husband's attention at home, and one who apparently didn't." The entire table went silent. My mother's face drained of color. "Eleanor, that's enough," Mom said quietly. "No, I don't think it is enough," Eleanor continued, standing up now, her chair scraping loudly against our hardwood floor. "I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. I'm tired of watching everyone tiptoe around the fact that my marriage failed while yours," she pointed at me, "succeeds because you're willing to do whatever it takes." Daniel stood up. "You need to leave." "I'll leave when I'm ready," Eleanor snapped. "But first, someone needs to say what everyone's thinking. That little Miss Perfect over here probably got ahead in her career on her back, and her kids should know what kind of mother they really have." The words hung in the air like poison gas. My Uncle Michael tried to intervene, but Eleanor shrugged him off. She was on a roll now, fueled by wine and 3 years of accumulated bitterness. "Those kids worship you," she said, pointing at me with her wine glass. "They think you're some kind of superwoman. But they should know the truth about how women like you operate. Trading on your looks, using men to get what you want. You're nothing but a __." She said it. The word that made my blood turn to ice and then immediately to fire. My mother gasped. Daniel moved toward Eleanor, but I held up my hand. I stood up slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the room was on me. "Get out of my house," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Oh, did I hurt your feelings?" Eleanor laughed, but it was bitter and sharp. "Truth hurts, doesn't it? Get out of my house." Someone needed to tell those kids who their mother really is. She stumbled toward the door, grabbing her purse. That's when I heard it. A sharp intake of breath from the stairway. I turned and saw them. Abigail and Benjamin, frozen on the stairs, faces pale with shock. They'd heard everything. Behind them stood Chloe, Noah, and Lily, equally stunned. Eleanor saw them, too. For a moment, something like regret flashed across her face, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She walked out, slamming the door behind her. The aftermath of that night was brutal. Abigail cried for hours. Benjamin wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't even look at me. My 14-year-old children had just heard their aunt call their mother a __, in front of the entire family. No amount of explanation or reassurance seemed to help. Daniel was furious. He wanted to cut Eleanor out of our lives immediately. But I was thinking about something else. Something Eleanor had said years ago, something I'd overheard by accident and filed away in my memory. It was at a family barbecue, maybe 5 years back. I'd gone inside David and Eleanor's house to use the bathroom. On my way back out, I passed David's home office. The door was cracked open and I heard crying. David was on the phone with someone, his voice breaking. "I can't do this anymore," he was saying. "She's going to destroy me if this gets out. I have to tell the kids myself before she uses it against me." I'd frozen in the hallway, knowing I shouldn't be listening, but unable to move. "The gambling was bad enough," David continued. "But this. Eleanor sleeping with Steve from my company while I was drowning in debt, trying to save the business. He was helping himself to insider information, sabotaging deals so he could start his own competing firm, and then having the audacity to blame me for everything. I'm done. I'm telling the kids the truth about why we're really getting divorced." But he never did tell them. Eleanor got out in front of it with her version. David had a midlife crisis and abandoned his family. She was the victim. He was the villain. The kids chose to believe their mother because she was there, physically present, while David was moving across the country. I kept that secret for years because it wasn't my place to say anything. It was David's truth to tell, or Eleanor's to confess. But Thanksgiving night, lying in bed, listening to my daughter cry herself to sleep through the wall, I felt that secret burning in my chest like acid. Eleanor had gone nuclear on me in front of my children. She'd used the most vile, degrading language to describe me to my own kids. The gloves were off. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering information. Those 14 days felt like an eternity. Abigail would barely eat dinner, pushing food around her plate while avoiding eye contact. Benjamin threw himself into basketball practice, staying late at school to avoid coming home. Daniel tried to be the stabilizing force, but I could see the anger simmering beneath his calm exterior every time he looked at our kids. My mother, Carol, called multiple times, trying to smooth things over. Eleanor was drunk, she'd say. She didn't mean it. You know how she gets when she's had too much wine. She meant every word, Mom, I'd reply. Drunk words are sober thoughts. She's been thinking this about me for who knows how long, and she finally felt justified saying it out loud. But the children heard everything, all 5 of them. Don't you think we should try to put this behind us for their sake? That's when I knew what I had to do. Mom was already rewriting history, already making excuses, already asking me to be the bigger person and let it go. The same pattern that had protected Eleanor her entire life was starting again. Someone had to break the cycle. I called David in Florida. We'd always been friendly, and he was horrified when I told him what Eleanor had said to my kids. I'm so sorry, Emily, he said. She's been spiraling since the divorce. I've tried to stay out of it for the kids' sake, but this is unforgivable. David, I need to ask you something, I said carefully. That night, I overheard you on the phone about 5 years ago. The gambling, the affair with Steve, did any of that actually come out during the divorce? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. No, he finally said. My lawyer advised me to keep it quiet. Said it would get messy and hurt the kids more than help anything. Eleanor agreed to a fair settlement, and I thought that was the end of it. The kids still don't know the real reason we split. They think you left her for another woman. I know. His voice was heavy with regret. Chloe won't even take my calls anymore. Noah's civil, but distant. Only Lily still acts like I'm her dad. I thought protecting their mother was protecting them, but now I'm not sure I did the right thing. What if they knew the truth? I asked. Another long pause. Emily, what are you planning? I'm planning to make sure my kids know I'm not what Eleanor called me, I said. And I think your kids deserve to know why their father really left. They're adults now, or close to it. Chloe's 19, Noah's 17. They're old enough to handle the truth. Eleanor will never forgive you, David said quietly. Good. I don't want her forgiveness. I want her to feel 1 ounce of the pain she caused my children. David didn't try to talk me out of it. Instead, he offered to send me documentation, bank statements showing the gambling losses, credit card bills from the time period, text messages he'd saved between Eleanor and Steve, who worked at David's company. He kept everything, just in case he ever needed to protect himself legally. The documentation arrived via encrypted email 3 days later. I sat in my home office, door locked, and went through everything. The evidence was damning and meticulous. David had screenshots of text messages between Eleanor and Steve that left no room for interpretation. Hotel receipts charged to their joint credit card on nights when David was provably at home, documented by his own credit card purchases at local restaurants or gas stations. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals of $2, $3, sometimes $5,000 at a time, all going to cover gambling debts David had accumulated trying to save his failing business while Eleanor carried on her affair with a man actively undermining that same company from the inside. There were even emails, Steve and Eleanor discussing David like he was an inconvenience, a problem to be managed. In one particularly vicious exchange, Eleanor had written, "He's so pathetic lately, always stressed about money. Maybe if he was half the man you are, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere." Steve's response was equally callous, "Once his company goes under, I'll have my own firm established with all his best clients. Then you can leave him and we can be together properly." Except that's not what happened. When David discovered the affair, Steve immediately backed out of whatever promises he'd made to Eleanor. Turns out Steve was also married, also had children, and had no intention of leaving his own family. He'd been using Eleanor to get business intelligence while simultaneously using her emotionally. Steve did start his competing firm that stole David's clients, but left Eleanor behind in the wreckage. He moved to Austin with his intact family and his new successful business built on David's stolen contacts. Eleanor was left holding the bag of her own choices. Reading through everything made me physically ill. Not because I was surprised by Eleanor's capacity for cruelty anymore, but because David had suffered in silence for 3 years to protect his children from this knowledge. He'd let his own kids hate him, let them think he was the abandoner, the midlife crisis cliché, rather than expose them to their mother's betrayal. That kind of sacrifice seemed noble at first glance, but I was starting to understand that it had only enabled Eleanor to continue being destructive. I printed everything out and stored it in a locked drawer in my office. Daniel found me there one evening, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. "What are you thinking about?" he asked gently. "I'm thinking about how Eleanor has gotten away with being a terrible person her entire life because people keep making excuses for her," I said. "I'm thinking about how she attacked our children and will face zero consequences unless someone holds her accountable." Daniel sat down next to me. "You're planning something?" "I'm planning to give her exactly what she deserves," I confirmed. "Nothing more, nothing less. Just the truth that everyone's been too polite or too scared to say out loud." He was quiet for a long moment. "The kids will hear about it. Chloe, Noah, Lily, there'll be collateral damage." "There. Already collateral damage," I said. "They've been casualties of their mother's lies for 3 years. Maybe it's time someone cared enough about them to tell them the truth, even if it hurts. Especially because it hurts. Because living a lie hurts worse in the long run." Daniel squeezed my hand. "Whatever you decide to do, I'm with you. Those are our kids in there. Still not sleeping right, still not themselves. Someone has to stand up for them." That conversation gave me the final push I needed. I wasn't just doing this for revenge anymore, though revenge was definitely part of it. I was doing it because silence had protected Eleanor long enough, and that protection had come at the cost of too many people's happiness and mental health. Christmas was approaching and Eleanor had the audacity to text me asking if we were still doing our traditional Christmas Eve gathering. She acted like Thanksgiving hadn't happened, like she hadn't drunkenly called me a ___ in front of our entire family. I responded, "Yes, we're hosting. Everyone's invited." She showed up with Chloe, Noah, and Lily in tow. Abigail and Benjamin barely acknowledged her. They'd been in therapy since Thanksgiving, working through what they'd heard. Our therapist said they needed time to process, that they were old enough to understand their aunt was wrong, but young enough that the words still cut deep. The gathering was tense. People made small talk, avoided real conversation. Eleanor held court in the living room, playing the victim as usual, talking about how hard single motherhood was. I watched Chloe comfort her, saw Noah bring her a glass of wine, observed Lily curled up next to her on the couch. Eleanor had positioned herself as the martyred mother so effectively that her own kids couldn't see the manipulation. After dinner, I asked Chloe, Noah, and Lily if they'd help me in the kitchen. Eleanor tried to follow, but Daniel intercepted her, asking about her new job. She was distracted enough that the 4 of us made it to the kitchen alone. "I need to talk to you 3 about something," I said, closing the kitchen door. "It's about your dad." Chloe's face hardened immediately. "I don't want to hear anything about him." "Chloe, please just listen. You all deserve to know the truth about why your parents really got divorced." "We know why," Noah said coldly. "He left Mom for someone else. He chose his midlife crisis over his family." "That's not what happened," I said gently. I pulled up my phone where I'd saved the documentation David had sent. "Your dad never had an affair. Your mom did." The kitchen went silent except for the distant sound of Christmas music from the living room. "That's a lie," Chloe said, but her voice wavered. "I wish it was," I said. "Your mom had an affair with Steve, a man who worked at your dad's company. While your dad was drowning in gambling debt, trying to save his business, your mom was sleeping with a man who was actively sabotaging that business from the inside, stealing client information to start his own competing firm. Your dad found out, confronted her, and she threatened to turn the kids against him if he told anyone the truth. So, he took the fall. He let everyone believe he was the bad guy because he thought it would hurt you less. Lily had started crying. Noah looked stunned, his face white as snow. Why would you tell us this? Chloe whispered. Why now? Because your mother stood in my dining room and called me a __ in front of my children, I said, and my voice broke slightly. She told my 14-year-old twins that their mother is a __ who slept her way to success. She damaged my kids in a way that might take years to heal. And she did it because she's bitter and angry and needs someone to blame for her own mistakes. I showed them the phone, let them scroll through the evidence, bank statements, text messages, credit card bills showing hotel charges when David was supposedly on business trips but was actually at home, and Eleanor was supposedly at her sister's house but was actually with Steve. Emails showing Steve's plan to steal David's business contacts and clients while sleeping with his wife. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, I continued. But you need to know that your dad left to protect himself from someone who betrayed him in the worst possible way. He sacrificed his relationship with you to spare you the pain of knowing what your mother did, and she spent 3 years collecting sympathy while painting him as a villain. Chloe was reading the text messages now, her face growing harder with each swipe. Noah had sat down at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. Lily was crying openly. Your dad loves you, I said softly. He's always loved you. He calls me sometimes, asks how you're doing because you won't talk to him. He moved to Florida because staying here, watching Eleanor turn you against him, was killing him. But he never stopped being your father. Mom lied to us, Chloe said, and her voice was hollow. For 3 years, she lied. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. But after what she said to my kids, after the way she attacked me in front of them, I couldn't keep protecting her anymore. Chloe looked up at me and I saw my own pain reflected in her eyes. The pain of a child learning their parent isn't who they thought they were. Does Dad know you're telling us? She asked. Yes. He sent me the evidence because he's tired of being the villain in a story where he was actually the victim. But he was afraid to tell you himself because he didn't want you to think he was trying to hurt your mother. Well, I want to hurt her, Chloe said coldly. I want her to feel what we're feeling right now. Lily spoke up for the first time, her voice shaking. I used to ask Dad why he left us. Every video call, every visit, I'd ask him what we did wrong. Why weren't we enough to make him stay? She was sobbing now. And he never defended himself. He just kept saying he loved us and he was sorry, but he didn't do anything wrong. We blamed him for 3 years and he didn't do anything wrong. Noah stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against my kitchen floor. I told him I hated him last Christmas. I told my own father I hated him because Mom said he chose another woman over us. But there was no other woman. There was just Mom lying to our faces every single day. The weight of their realizations hung heavy in the kitchen. Chloe had pulled out her phone and was reading through the text messages again, her expression growing harder with each one. I could see her mentally reconstructing the past 3 years, every conversation with her mother. Every time Eleanor had played the victim, while David took the blame. She's been getting sympathy from everyone, Chloe said slowly. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, even my friends' parents. Everyone feels sorry for poor Eleanor, whose husband abandoned her. She's built her entire identity around being the wronged woman, and it's all been a lie. I'm sorry, I said again. I wish I could have found a gentler way to tell you, but after what she said to my kids, after watching Abigail and Benjamin suffer for weeks, I couldn't protect her anymore. You deserve to know who your father really is and who your mother really is. We need to leave. I can't be in the same house with her right now. They gathered their things quietly. When Eleanor realized they were leaving, she rushed over, concern plastered across her face. What's wrong? She asked. Why are you leaving so early? Chloe turned to face her mother, and the look she gave Eleanor could have frozen hell itself. "Emily told us about Steve," she said simply. The blood drained from Eleanor's face. She looked at me with pure hatred, then back at her daughter. "Whatever she told you, it's a lie," Eleanor said quickly. "Your father put her up to this. He's trying to turn you against me." "Stop," Chloe cut her off. "Just stop. We saw the evidence. The text messages, the credit card statements, everything. You lied to us for 3 years. You let us hate Dad for something he didn't do while you played the victim. Chloe, please. You don't understand." Eleanor reached for her daughter, but Chloe stepped back. "I understand perfectly," Chloe said. "You're exactly what you called Emily, except worse, because you destroyed your own family and then blamed everyone else for it." Noah and Lily walked out without saying another word. Chloe followed, but paused at the door. "You told Emily's kids their mom was a ____, she said to Eleanor. "You damaged those children because you're bitter and cruel. But the only ___ in this family is you, Mom. The only liar is you, and I'm done pretending otherwise." The door closed behind them, leaving Eleanor standing in my entryway, surrounded by stunned family members who'd heard everything. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. But whether they were from shame or rage, I couldn't tell. "You destroyed my family," she whispered. "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed your family 3 years ago. I just stopped letting you destroy mine." She left without another word. The party broke up shortly after. Abigail and Benjamin had watched the whole confrontation from the stairs again, but this time what they witnessed was the truth coming out. Their aunt wasn't the victim she pretended to be. The woman who had called their mother a ___ was actually the one who'd betrayed her family. That night, Abigail came into my room and hugged me for the first time since Thanksgiving. "I'm sorry I doubted you, Mom," she whispered. "You didn't doubt me, baby," I said, holding her tight. "You were hurt and confused. And that's okay. But you know the truth now, all of it. The fallout has been extensive and complicated." Chloe called David that night and they talked for 3 hours. She apologized for shutting him out, said she wanted to rebuild their relationship. Noah followed suit a few days later. Lily never blamed David to begin with, but their relationship has strengthened, too. Eleanor, on the other hand, has been completely frozen out by her own children. Chloe moved in with friends rather than go home. Noah stays with our mom, Carol, most of the time. Lily splits her time between family members anywhere but her mother's house. They're all talking to David regularly, making plans to visit him in Florida over spring break. Eleanor has tried to do damage control, spinning new versions of the story to anyone who will listen. But the evidence doesn't lie, and most of the family has seen it by now. David finally stopped protecting her and shared his side with key family members. The sympathy well has run dry. She's tried to reach out to me twice. Once through text, calling me every name she can think of, blaming me for destroying her relationship with her children. Once through my mother, asking for me to tell Chloe the truth was exaggerated, that there were circumstances I didn't understand. I blocked her number and told my mother I had nothing to say to Eleanor. That first Christmas after the confrontation came and went. We celebrated with David and his kids, who flew in from Florida to spend the holiday with their father and with us. It was the first time in 3 years they'd all been together properly without the tension of Eleanor's lies hanging over everything. Watching David hug his children while they cried and apologized was worth every second of Eleanor's anger. Eleanor spent that Christmas alone. According to my mother, she called repeatedly, desperate to see her kids, but none of them answered. Mom said Eleanor sounded broken, defeated. Part of me felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered Abigail's face after Thanksgiving, the way my daughter had looked at me with confusion and hurt, and the guilt disappeared. Sometimes in protecting yourself, you have to be willing to burn bridges. Sometimes the bridge needs to burn. Eleanor spent years building her identity on a foundation of lies and manipulation. She hurt people, destroyed relationships, and collected sympathy she didn't deserve. When she came for my children, tried to poison them against me with vicious lies, she crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The revenge I took wasn't petty. I didn't slash her tires or post about her on social media. I simply told the truth she'd been hiding for 3 years. The truth destroyed her relationships with her children because those relationships were built on lies. You can't maintain a connection built on deception once the foundation crumbles. Abigail and Benjamin are doing better now. They understand their aunt was projecting her own behavior onto me, that hurt people often try to hurt others. We're working through it as a family with our therapist's help. The damage Eleanor caused is healing slowly but steadily. Chloe, Noah, and Lily are also in therapy, processing the betrayal of learning their mother lied to them for years. It's not easy for them. Finding out a parent isn't who you thought they were is devastating at any age. But they have their father back, and they have the truth, and sometimes that has to be enough. As for Eleanor, I honestly don't know what she's doing now. We don't talk. We don't see each other at family events because she's stopped coming to them. My mother says she's moved to a smaller apartment, that the child support from David isn't enough to maintain her previous lifestyle without his income. She's working full-time now, something she managed to avoid during most of her marriage. I don't take pleasure in her downfall, but I don't regret my role in it either. She chose to attack my children. She chose to use the most degrading language possible to describe me in front of my 14-year-old twins. She made that choice knowing it would hurt them, and she did it anyway because she was drunk and bitter and needed to lash out at someone. Actions have consequences. Eleanor taught me that lesson inadvertently. She taught me that sometimes standing up for yourself and your children means being willing to become the villain in someone else's story. She taught me that protecting bullies, even family bullies, only enables them to hurt more people. Christmas is definitely quieter now. That first year after the confrontation, our gathering was huge, chaotic, full of relatives and noise and the complicated dynamics of a large family trying to process what had happened. This past Christmas, a full year later, was smaller and more intimate. David and his kids came back to visit. My mom, Carol, joined us along with a few cousins who'd sided with truth over false family loyalty. No drama, no underlying tension, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. Eleanor's absence was noted, but not mourned. Her children are building new relationships with a father she tried to erase from their lives. My children have a better understanding of who their mother really is, untainted by Eleanor's venom. And I have peace knowing I protected my family the only way I could. People have asked if I feel guilty. The answer is complicated. I feel guilty that Chloe, Noah, and Lily had to learn such a painful truth about their mother. I feel guilty that the revelation came from me rather than from David in a more controlled setting. But do I feel guilty for telling the truth? No, absolutely not. Eleanor could have apologized after Thanksgiving. She could have shown up sober to Christmas Eve, pulled me aside, and said she was sorry for what she'd said to my children. She could have taken responsibility for her behavior and tried to make amends. Instead, she showed up acting like nothing happened, ready to continue playing the victim while my kids were still in therapy processing her attack. She forced my hand. She gave me no choice but to defend myself and my family with the only weapon I had, the truth about who she really was. The truth is a powerful thing. It can heal, and it can destroy. Eleanor spent years hiding from her truth, building elaborate lies to protect her image. When those lies finally crumbled, everything she'd built on top of them came crashing down, too. Her relationship with her children, her reputation in the family, her carefully constructed victim narrative, all of it collapsed under the weight of reality. I think about that night sometimes. The look on her face when Chloe confronted her. The way she tried to lie even then, to spin one more story, to manipulate one more time. And the way Chloe shut her down calmly and coldly, refusing to be gaslit anymore. That was the moment Eleanor lost everything, and she knew it. David thanked me, which was unexpected. He said he should have told his kids the truth years ago, that he made a mistake trying to protect Eleanor at his own expense. He said, watching them rebuild their relationship with him has been the greatest gift, and he's grateful I was brave enough to do what he couldn't. Brave. That's an interesting word for it. I don't feel brave. I feel like a mother who protected her children from someone who attacked them. I feel like a woman who refused to be diminished by someone else's bitterness. Maybe that's the same thing as bravery. I don't know. What I do know is that my family is stronger now. Abigail and Benjamin see me as someone who will fight for them, even when it's hard, even when it means becoming the bad guy in someone else's story. Daniel respects me for standing my ground. David has his children back. And 3 young adults have learned an important lesson about truth, consequences, and the danger of unchecked manipulation. Was it worth it? The family drama, the tension, the permanent severing of a relationship with my aunt? Yes. 1,000 times yes. Because my children's mental health and self-worth are more valuable than maintaining false peace with someone who actively tried to damage them. Eleanor made her choices. She chose to have an affair. She chose to lie about why her marriage ended. She chose to attack me and my children when her own life wasn't going the way she wanted. And now she's living with the consequences of those choices. Alone in a small apartment, cut off from her children, her reputation in ruins. I made my choices, too. I chose truth over silence. I chose my children over family politics. I chose to fight back when attacked rather than turn the other cheek. And I'm living with the consequences of those choices, too, which include a quieter Christmas, a smaller family circle, and the knowledge that I can be ruthless when my children are threatened. Some people say I should have been the bigger person, that I should have let Eleanor's attack slide, that family is more important than pride. Those people didn't watch their children cry themselves to sleep after being told their mother is a ... Those people don't understand that being the bigger person sometimes means standing up to bullies, even when those bullies are family. The holidays came and went. We're settling into a new normal now. My kids are thriving in therapy. David's kids are healing from years of believing a lie. Daniel and I are stronger than ever, our relationship tested and proven solid. And Eleanor is somewhere out there dealing with the wreckage of her own making. Justice isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as the truth finally being told after years of silence. Sometimes it's a family gathering without the toxic person who's been poisoning it for years. Sometimes it's just peace, quiet, and the absence of chaos. Christmas is way quieter now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. What would you have done in my shoes?